Since its debut on the Famicom in 1986, the Castlevania series has been a video game franchise enjoyed by many. And while it will always be known for its games, last year the series got its very own animated show. But, as I can say from personal experience, you don't need to have played the games to understand and enjoy the series. In fact, after the first season I got into Castlevania for a bit and wanted to try out the games, so I bought a few from the Wii U eShop. Let me just say that they were harder than I was expecting, and I did not get very far. My terrible video game skills aside, Season 2 is almost here after over a year of fans patiently waiting for more content. And just as I was able to review the Dragon Prince before it aired, I got the opportunity to take an early look at the first 6 episodes of Season 2, so I can give you all the rundown about what you can expect before it airs all 8 episodes on October 26th. But don't worry, this will be a spoiler-free review for the most part, although I will be mentioning small plot points once in a while to give you better context of my overall opinions. I'm Haley from Cartoonverse, and this is my review for Castlevania Season 2. For those that may need a refresher, the first season of the show revolved around the very beginnings of Dracula's attack on mankind, as well as Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard joining forces to fight against him. And if you were looking for a show that was full of action, violence, dark humor, and stunning animation, this was the show to watch. Yeah, for those of you that are uninformed, this was definitely not a kids show, and also one of the very few serious, action-oriented, adult animated shows. However, it suffered greatly from having to pack everything into 4 episodes, with little time to get to know the main characters. Heck, Alucard, a major player in the story, no video game pun intended, didn't even show up until the second half of episode 4. That didn't stop me from wanting more, and I was not alone. But with an 8-episode season, how does Season 2 stack up against the previous one? Strangely enough, most of my feelings about the show this time around were a reversal of those I felt before. Instead of an extremely fast-moving plot, the series took its time with introducing new characters and their backstories, as well as having more of a focus on dialogue rather than the action scenes full of violent death. In fact, I would say things didn't really speed up until basically episode 6, where we get a ton of action and a lot of stuff goes down. Although for the most part the humor is still there, and there's definitely a good amount of swearing. But that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this season. I do want to give a quick introduction to the actual plot of the season before going more in depth about my opinions. So, the season can be largely divided into 2 different stories. The gathering of vampires from all around the world to join forces and kill all humans, and the main trio's journey to the Belmont family home to find a way to defeat Dracula. For the most part, this does work, although I felt in some episodes we barely got to see the heroes because all the attention was placed on what was going on with Dracula and his followers, and this was a bit disappointing because I often found things more entertaining when there is a lot more focus on the journey of the heroes. And I think it's about time I talked about them. I wouldn't say the main characters have changed much since the first season, which is a good thing since Season 2 picks up immediately after the first one ended. But while Season 1 simply introduced these characters, Season 2 gave a much greater focus on each of their backstories and how they became the person they are today. And I absolutely love them. Trevor may still be the same dark-humored alcoholic we all know and love, but he is painted as a person who has been lonely for a very long time in more ways than one, and that's quite tragic. Sypha, on the other hand, has a livelihood to her that very much surprised me. She has cemented herself as best girl in the show, although I will admit there isn't much competition. Finally, Alucard is continuing to be the brooding half-vampire with daddy issues. We do learn a bit about his childhood this season, but I'm really hoping for more of that in the future because he had a very unique household situation, if you know what I mean. I did however find it a bit too convenient that Alucard, despite being quite young, always knows something that can solve the problem at hand, while Trevor is left being pretty useless unless it comes to killing monsters, which Alucard can also do. Nonetheless, their dynamic was overall still very entertaining, but once again Sypha surprised me with having most of the best lines in the season. I loved seeing her mess with the other members of her party. From teasing Trevor with a nickname to calling Alucard a teenager in a man's body, she always knows just how to push the boys' buttons. Of course, the bickering between Trevor and Alucard is also funny, but they do often keep their distance when they can. But as I mentioned before, that's only really half the story. I really need to tell you guys how much I love Dracula now. We barely got to know him in Season 1, but I was still amazed at how much focus was put on him all of a sudden. He is no longer a mysterious character, but is instead painted as sympathetic and actually being a bit justified in wanting to destroy mankind. Okay Dracula, I understand that the humans killed your wife, and that you have a one-strike-you're-out policy, but killing millions if not billions is going to need a bit more justification in my opinion. So a lot of the season we see him interacting with the other members of his court, and there's a stark difference painted between him and the rest of the vampires. These interactions are the source of where a lot of slowing of the plot occurred, so I do think they went overboard with fleshing out Dracula as a character, even if at the end it made him one of my favorite villains of all time. As briefly mentioned at the beginning of my video, I was a bit disappointed with how much focus they gave to the villains. While it was great from a storytelling perspective, I found myself enjoying the heroes more since they for the most part got along with each other and were not about to stab each other in the back at a moment's notice. This does create a cool dynamic with everyone on Dracula's side, but it just went a bit too far for my liking. On the other hand, one thing I was not bored with was the introduction of the two Devil Forge masters, Hector and Isaac. Their backstories are some of the best scenes in the season for me, as it justifies their hatred for humanity while also showing their differences early on. They may both start off as the only humans Dracula trusts enough to be by his side, but their paths split quite quickly, and I cannot wait to see where that leads. Looking across all the episodes I saw, one thing has become clear. Everyone has a complicated past, both human and vampire, and it is this suffering which defines the person they are today. As for something else I definitely enjoyed about this season, is just how jam-packed with new lore it is. We learn a lot about what makes vampires unique, as well as how they view humans as not much more than animals. There is also some new information regarding magic, monsters, and the Belmont family. As usual, there are some things added in from the video games, which I know fans will enjoy. On the flip side, the amount of dialogue is questioning, and overall can make some episodes of the season quite a drag. This is a show based off of a video game series, from what I have seen is much more concerned with gameplay than the dialogue. But when there is action, it's great as it always has been. It just took until the second half of the season to get there. Also, the animation is overall amazing, and Powerhouse Animation did a great job. So, adding up my feelings about the season thus far, I can confidently say that I had a fun time watching it, and I'm excited to view the final 2 episodes. But there was definitely a slow burn to get to the excitement of the latter half of the season, and for those that might just be casually watching, it may not be enough to keep them interested. But I mean, it's still only an 8-episode season, so this is the perfect show to take your time with, as we might end up having to wait over a year for more episodes. Guess it's time for me to give the Castlevania games another try, even though I'm sure I'll die over and over. But I'm doing it for you, Trevor and Alucard, you beautiful men. Castlevania Season 2 will be streaming on Netflix on October 26th. For everyone that's still watching, I'd like to give a huge thank you for checking out this review of Castlevania Season 2. Now, this is actually my second review that I was able to do that Netflix gave me early episodes. Like I mentioned before, there's Dragon Prince, so please check that out if you haven't already, and you haven't seen Dragon Prince, because I definitely recommend it. And you may have noticed that I did have some camera portions in this video where I showed my face, and I'm just trying that out to get used to doing that, because a lot of people do that, and I just thought I'd be a little more personal, so that's that. And if you really like that, let me know. If you didn't, well, I'll probably keep doing it little bits here and there. So yeah, that's it. Also, if you would like to continue to help me, be able to make videos like this, to make reviews early and whatever, please consider supporting us on Patreon. And if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe and give this video a like. So I actually had this script and a bit of the video early on Patreon, so that's just a bonus to incentive to join, as well as get other cool rewards, which you can check out by looking at our page, which I'll link, of course, at the end right here. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.